Everybody, and welcome to AvidMax Fly Tying Tuesday. Brady with you again, tying up today a Gunslinger. This is a cool little nymph pattern, sort of a hybrid of a pheasant tail and a hare's ear, really, with a little bit of modern flash. So that's an example of it. Go ahead and tie one up here. Tying it on a cool hook. This is the Tiemco 201R. It's a new hook from Tiemco. Just got them in recently. Really modern profile from Tiemco, which is cool. Big white gape with an upturned point there. Flat, long shank on a straight eye. And I'm just going to start the thread behind the bead here. I got a tungsten copper bead on it from Firehole. And that's a 1/8 or 3mm bead, tying on a size 18. Is that right? No, these are 16s here. They're a little bit larger profiled hooks. That's the 18 right there. So they are a little bit bigger sized overall, especially when you think about Tiemco hooks. Keep that in mind if you're shopping for these. First material we're going to tie in right out back is the pheasant tail, and that'll be our tail for this fly. So just some brown pheasant tail here. Measure it right about the length of the shank. Don't want to go too long with this long shanked hook here. To secure that in place, and I'm using a Nano Silk 30 denier, so it's a pretty fine thread. I'll use that pheasant tail to help add a little bit of a bulk to the fly. Pretty slim taper overall though on the back side. Next material we're going to throw in is some ultra wire. I have some copper brown here. It's small. Sort of a blendy color on this one. You could do a brighter color or gold. All kinds of good stuff there. But I like how this matches the copper bead. Secure that in place, and again we'll just tie that really the full length of the body to build up just a little bit. Still slim fly, but add a little bit. And then we can kind of taper that as well, maybe one time. Go halfway back and then forward. And then I'll walk all the way back again. Stick that wire in my material clip there. And then some more pheasant tail for the body. Same brown. Tie that in. Right on the back, work on forward. Try to keep it somewhat smooth as we go. Always clean it up on a pass back, and then one time forward again. Maybe walk it one more time, backward and forward. And if you wanted to use a larger gauge thread, you could do the same thing but have less wraps overall. Now we'll wrap the pheasant tail forward just like you would on a pheasant tail nymph. Nice and clean. I like to go all the way up. We'll just bury that underneath. And trim out the excess. Nice and secured there. Then we can bring the wire over top of it. Make this a pretty durable fly overall. About 7 wraps forward up into the bead. Quick and easy nymph. It's great in this natural color. Again, you could add a brighter wire to contrast it. Could also do it in an olive, maybe a lighter pheasant tail as well. That wire out of there. Then we're going to walk back and create our thorax region here. And we got our next material coming in, some Scud back. I think they use a thin skin of some sort, typically like a mottled thin skin. I just have some 1/8 Scud back here, it's pretty handy. Go ahead and trim it at an angle. And then tie it in. Gives an easier point to grab. Walk back a little ways. Give it a good sized thorax, not quite to the halfway point, but not too far off of it there. And then lay ourselves a base. We're going to try to find the midpoint of that base. And tie in the Krystal flash is what I'm using for the legs on this one. You could also use some midge flash if you're tying it in smaller sizes. But this is the black. A really awesome, versatile material. And we'll tie it in on one side, roughly the length, with the ability to trim it down. I can fold it over to the other side, grab it over there, a few wraps to secure. We can trim the front to disconnect them, trim off the excess. Before I go to actually trim them to length, we're going to go ahead and lay down our dubbing. Some Hares Ear dubbing from the Hares Ear Nymph. So pheasant tail again, Hares Ear Nymph, kind of blended into this little stonefly variation. At least in the size I'm tying it, you could tie it smaller and make it a mayfly. But just natural hare's ear and simple dubbing noodle. And then we can use that also to help manipulate and prop our legs. So a couple of wraps behind them, gets them to prop outwards a bit, and I can sneak in between them. Try to keep my dubbing nice and even. Like so, pull the front ones back as we work forward, and then just make sure I got that nice and full like I want it. We'll add in another layer or so. Sort of a good mid-size fly. When I'm nymphing, I tend to fish 3 nymphs, and I like to lead with my attractor, which is usually a larger weighted fly, followed up with typically a mid-size fly, especially in the summertime if I'm nymphing, unless I can avoid it. But then in the wintertime there might be midges behind it, but this can be a good mid-size fly in faster water if you need the extra weight on top of your lead fly that's your primary weight. It's looking pretty good there, so now we're going to bring over our Scud back right over top of it. And pull that somewhat tight, not too tight. We don't want it to bounce back and come free underneath the threads after we trim it, but snug enough so that it's biting onto that hare's ear. Do a couple wraps on top and a couple wraps in front. We can get away with quite a few. It's the benefit of the small denier thread. We'll trim out that excess there. Can make sure everything's nice and snug. And then we're going to follow it up here with a whip finish. and some UV over top. Trim that out. I'll go ahead and trim my legs as well. I like to fold them forward because it gives them different lengths, and then I can kind of decide if I like that, if I like the front ones to be a little bit shorter, which I do on this nymph. We'll kind of leave it like that. We'll leave them super long too on this one because you can always trim it down. But then you got some stuff sticking out that's gonna tickle them along the way and maybe convince them to eat. So some UV, just my good old Solarez. Got thin, just gonna act fast with it. So let's see, I might be able to trim that down a little bit more. I left that a little long. That's good enough. Okay, so this is gonna hide underneath the UV anyways here. Just a quick dab right on top. I like to pull from the back towards the front. Try to catch it while it's still bubbling there. We'll move it a little bit while I get the UV ready, and then hit it with the lights. You probably didn't even really need to mess with trimming that scud back again. It would have just been hidden under there, but probably helped it lay a little bit cleaner. There you are. That's the Gunslinger Nymph. Not too bad to tie, just a few maneuvers throughout. Good old UV. Cool new hook from UmpQuest, so check that out. And then all the materials down in the description there. Find them at avidmax.com. Give us a call. Happy to help you out. Thanks for watching.